My VIP cohort, we got something good today. It deals with pay and well. Welcome, my VIP cohort. Let's lend an ear to this. We have a topic that is going to rattle some ears, and it is something that we don't like because it eats away at our profit margin. And the thing is, it's pay and purpose. The reason that it's so important to put pay and purpose together is that when we look at something or look away, we need to look at what is the person behind there actually thinking. When we look at pay, we look at like what they make. Is it only monetary? No. It's different packages, different ways that we format, different offers. Yet a pay has to symbolize a purpose together, and both done correctly can empower somebody to give you even better results. We have to give up our self-greedy nature sometimes for the greater output of what individuals can do, or a large language model. Whatever you put towards, you want it to improve upon itself. It takes resources to get things going. The free parts that we throw in is just to give it more taste, more palatability for what can be done. So let's stick on to people for this. When we're in a job that we pretty much hate or we just don't want to be there, the pay and purpose comes straight into that. Our purpose is not aligning because they're doing, let's say, micromanaging. You want to do things that are above and beyond, or they have policies where it's like you need these types of suits or uniforms and all that. Yet the pay doesn't reflect making those actions to make sure that those uniforms are up to that point. But they set that expectation because it should be that case, and they're in charge. That's where we have to look at it in better detail. The pay and purpose have to align. If the purpose is you want them to look S tier in this flippin' phenomenal suit or phenomenal uniform, you need to increase their pay so they can go after things that empower. They can get things that make it look more fashionable, more looking the part, without like going crazy in the brands and so forth. So you can't just pay a McDonald's worker $1 million. That's not where I'm going at. But you can pay a McDonald's worker $1 million if they have the skills to increase themselves and allow a tool that expands their whole overall output. If the McDonald's worker knows mergers and acquisitions and how to do the books, how to speak in law repertoire and reads books, works his body and so forth, then that is like the mandatory opportunity needs to be set to move them into the roles that they need to, and even outside of that, because his missions are not aligned to the lower grade. We put our limits on ourselves where sometimes being in those limits is the suffocating part of our lives. And purpose needs that project, the task and all that, and makes it a fulfilling role. And it's joyful. Think about it this way. If you're not joyful in what you're doing, and I just pass you $1 million, you may be after the money, yet the purpose is not there. So there's still a divide. You may be well off, but you're not purposely driven. And when that happens, you get exhausted, and this burnout effect comes in parallel, and you think that you need vacations more often than not. It's not to say never take a vacation. It's more or less you feel desperate for that because it's not what you are made for. We are given shallow work too often, and we're trying to make something better in this world. And it feels really bad when people don't support that. But does that mean I complain, blame, gossip, and do that? No. It's how do I change the hours that I have associated to where I want to put myself towards? In my after hours, do I go party or do I go write a book? I write a book. In my after hours, do I work on a large language model or go hang out with friends? Work on the large language model. Do I go to the Chamber of Commerce or do I go to Main Event or the amusement park? Chamber of Commerce. Do I go to the Bahamas for a business trip or do I just go to Las Vegas and party? Those are like the types of decisions that will be presented to us. And if we keep the constant frame of what aligns with our bigger mission, we will decide the contrary. Because life is made up of many choices. And the choices that we make lead up to the events that we are. And then we get trapped because we made so many decisions that led to the trap. And we never had like a, think of it like a red light. Say, hey, stop. Stop. Let's look at this. So pay and purpose are hand in hand. And we can't allow ourselves to go deep down pleasure, praise, and power. Too much of those and we can lose all track. The scoreboard doesn't even matter any longer. We're just extracting. One moment. So, when power gets involved, it can direct the force of where it needs to go. Meaning, if you have the power to pay someone $100,000 rather than the standard 40 or 50,000, and their output justifies the 100,000 because they can make $1 million, but you do the standard because that's what you do with everybody else, and they only generate about 200K. That's where you have to look at that person needs that 100K because they're going to be doing 10 times the output than the 2x output of another. We're always exchanging, and we need to know the data to back it up. And that's where you got to know your numbers. Hold. Numbers are everything. If you don't know the numbers, you're walking blind without calculations. If you can see where numbers are being directed, you have a better map in your head of where to go. And then with your own intuition, you can start compensating for parts that are not mathematically there, but you see something that's a possibility. And that's where risk comes in. And based on the data, good decisions, bad decisions. But you cannot be guaranteed it. You can shout that you're certain, you're guaranteed, and all this, and it can give confidence and so forth. But if your confidence is already in, one, you know those things are guaranteed, but you'll make all the best attempts in there no matter what. And secondly, confidence comes from competency. If you've already done the reading and many parts that are required, you shouldn't be stressing in your field. You're just going to be calm and going at it because you've done so many of the reps that it's just become natural. Think of it. Your first day at work is never like the year after work. After a year, you're so used to the process that it's just like second nature. But your first day, you're having to understand this whole landscape. And that's where time comes in. But skills that you have accumulated prior can accelerate how fast you can get to that point. Some people who stay at companies for just 1 year or many years haven't learned what someone who can use their prior skills and push it up in 3 months. That's why age is one of the most dumb things that happen. Age is a real happening where body can physically break down or health ailments and so forth. I'm not disrespecting that, but all too often we use it as a crutch rather than what things are we doing in our after hours that are increasing us. If you ain't reading and you're just doing nothing, that's bad. What is the only way if you're not reading? Coding, building, tinkering, workshop, hands-on. All right, that counts. What I'm trying to say is do something in your craft that is in the focus. Use what's prior with the dabbling and understanding the wide scope of things to aid in that whole development. But stay focused in that, because when you're deliberate and decisive, because decisive comes after deliberate, you're going to see the results happen. And the results only happen after I've published this one book. It's the prerequisite. But it's going to go into the first rule if you forget anything else. Have a payment gateway. There is no results before that one. Then you can use what's here, pay and purpose. You got to make the tough calls in life. And the tough call is pay people more. In my own head, I always think, how can I have the ability and they show these 3 traits? I'm disclosing them. 1, they're a reader. 2nd, they're a warrior. Warrior does not mean that they have to be a soldier. No. It means like they work their body, they do things, maybe tennis, basketball, maybe martial arts. You get the gist. They're working their body out. They're doing things. They ain't just sitting being lazy. They're moving. 3rd, abandoned. Why would I go after the abandoned? I came out of a children's home. And the likelihood of people succeeding after there is abysmal. And the support networks are not there. That's the real big issue that I have. There's so many support networks for underrepresented groups and ethnicities, but there's very few for people who came out of children's homes. That's what we need. And abandoned can go into soldiers and all of them as well. I'm not excluding, but my main focus is on those kids who came out of children's homes, who've gone through a lot of hell, and the support networks aren't there. Look, and this is not to blame parents, because they might get that wrong idea. Sometimes children have a criminality to them. And a criminal psychologist is probably like one of the best ways to look at it as a diagnosis, if you need to see the between the lines. But in most regards, if the child doesn't exhibit those things, I hold parents accountable heavily. I am very adaptable in the way that I view both sides of the story. Yet, I am still very on the child's side. If you can teach the child more reading, more opportunities, and accelerated training programs where you can both benefit the big profit organizations and themselves. And you may be saying, why would I say big profit organizations? Because if you don't think in regards to somebody that you tick off in the future and not work with them and make sure that things are working together, they'll come back and maybe attack you in the blind spot. So that's just a rule of thumb. My main focus is just the children's home people getting support. If you're in there even for 1 second, that's where I want to help you. Foster care, doesn't matter. Thrown away into a military academy, flip. Wilderness reserve, a psyche ward, we'll figure it out. My adaptability, and we'll look for professionals that find that. But pay and purpose. I want people that go after 100K, minimal. There should not be under that, especially in today's world with inflation and so much stuff. That's like my first minimum goal. My specific goal on myself is $500,000, $2,811. That's my specific at this time. And then I increase it to like 5 million, $2,811 on that one. And then I'll keep increasing it and as it goes to the billion. That's how I'm specific. That's the number I set in my head. I don't care whoever tells me, whether it's Claude or large language model or people. That's the number that I've set in my head, and that's my worth. In addition, I judge my worth on another key point. The books I've read. Physically, I've gone up to 600 books. And I charge $1 per book per hour. So I've read 600 books. I do $600 per hour in my head. Then the second one I do is free. I'll do it for free. Third, mergers and acquisitions. If it's framed in that way, we'll do it that regard. And then, or the amount that I set as the price. I do not want to be negotiating on the set rates that I have. I put those rates in brackets to figure out what you want. If you're wanting to go higher with me and have more perks to one-on-one and understand what I know and apply it to yourself, perfect. My rates are higher. If you want the classes that I already provided and the prices that I set structured, it's there. And on Spin Strategy, it's cheaper than my hourly rate that I set for myself in my head. You may be thinking of all the regards why it should be cheaper. Okay. There's open source models. There's all that. Go have fun. It's painful. It's a lot of things. You need capital, and the capital I provide is going to go back into the system. And that's how I think. And there's nothing wrong with asking for that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you need capital to move capital. You don't have to start with capital, but you need capital to move capital. You can be creative. So, convening back to the pay and purpose, we understand my stance of pay should at minimum be 100,000 based on those 3 criteria. And the 4th bonus one I'll give you is humility. Because as the much you learn, the thing that you understand is that you know nothing. With how large everything is, I've come to the point where it's like, damn, I don't really know anything. And it sucks. That's the part. You really don't know everything. But you have to find people and delegate the task and build it out with the automated flows. And then let it do its thing. So, what is purpose? Because we're beating around the bush. Purpose is something that is desirable, that's aligned to you, and is achievable. Think of the SMART method. I am losing my brain cells at this moment. So, just think of the specific, measurable, actionable, repeatable, and time-oriented. I think that's it. If I'm wrong, butcher me. So, if it follows those guidelines with the purpose and it's aligned to your desires, go after it. You have to have a little exercise of power and force into it. Don't let it overpower. Don't let pressure take over. You got to make the choice away from that, because pleasure will just lead away from the focus that you have to do. Pleasure can give good experiences, and then you can apply that over. But if you're tired of not having the results you want, give up the pleasure for this time period. Get disciplined. Forget motivation. Get the habits. It's better to do 15 minutes than an hour. It's easier to implement. And then when you're ready to kick it into overdrive, then you can do it easily when you find like a mentor and coach. And that's where it can get even better. If you're sitting down with somebody that's equally as driven as you, that doesn't want to just give you crazy feedback just because they're envious or egotistical, you hold them tight. That's what I'll say. Hold them tight. Now, they may not be ready for you at all levels, so you might have to step away. You can always thank them, always bring them down, say, hey, they were my support at this point. But if they are not at the point where you're at and you got to go look for others, just go do it. Just be like, hey, look, we're doing amazing. I'm enjoying everything. But the level I'm at, I got to go after this. And my time's going to be contributed there. You can always hit text and hit me up. Yet my main time and attention has to go find someone that can increase, because I have this dream, goal, purpose, motto, vision, projects, time blocking, tasks, timelines, all converging to the thing that I must do. And that's where purpose combines it all. And dreams are things that can be extracted from what's not in this reality to become this reality. By testing, by prototyping, by things. And it's kind of weird. I always think of it in the regards of metaphysical and empirical converging. And you have to play with it. Because if you don't have metaphysical, it's not as much imaginative. You have to think of regards like, what happens if it wasn't like gravity wasn't this way that it operates? Maybe if it was inverse or this and that. That's where metaphysical thinking is involved, but empirical knows that these repeatabilities should be applied over here. Let's test that and then see what works and what doesn't. It's not the absence of reason. It's actually reason and imagination finding its middle ground as best that can be done. Because it's always like a counterbalance. It's never truly equilibrium because there's always some slight shift. So let it be at that. So yeah, pay and purpose. Pay people what they're worth. Don't get egotistical at it. If you can't pay them what they're worth, figure out a way to. Because if you're just going to pay for cheap, you're going to get cheap results. And that's not fun. People want to take pride in what they do. Not let pride take them over, but pride in the sense that they're doing something that contributes to their desire. And having desires fulfilled makes an outcome and results there. And in that regard, results are everything. Doesn't matter how you feel about them, there has to be some sort of result given on the baseline of legal, ethical, profitable, and impact. If one has to be broken or many, do so very cautiously. Take what you like, forget the rest unless it has consequences. That's one of my mottos. And the second, and I'll leave you with this, become the VIP you're meant to be, and deuces.